the major difference between a Celtic harp and other harps?
A concert harp, you mean?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the concert harp, everybody thinks of with the crown. Besides size, because I would say most of them are a good foot taller, they're really large. They have a more advanced technology. I believe they were built 1620 is when they were created. And what they do, instead of having this system of levers here, they have a system of pedals. They have 7 pedals for each note in a scale. And you can set the pedal to be flat or sharp or natural. The reason why they're much larger is because there are, and they're heavy too, is because the technology for the pedals runs through the pillar, or the big thing that you see in front with the crown on top, and that there's steel rods in there that run from the strings down to function, make the pedals work. You know, the strings are set up the same way, but they're larger, so your technique's different because they'll play with their elbows up higher, so because they're going to be reaching further with strings. And so when they shift into different keys, they do it differently. And because they're doing it with their feet, it allows them to play a lot more modern popular music, because if there's a lot of accidentals or notes out of a key, which is usually the case in jazz and blues, they can do that, whereas for me, I'd have to leave out a lot of those interesting notes, otherwise I'd have to be an octopus, flipping many more levers all at once, and it would be very difficult to do that. So it's sort of like the difference between driving a stick shift and an automatic, between playing the 2 instruments.
You mentioned that the Celtic harp is older. What's some of the history behind that?
It goes, and I'm not even, they're ancient instruments. And harps themselves are ancient instruments. I believe Celtic harps are something like 1100 or something, and about then is when they start appearing. And there's some real ancient ones, I believe, in museums in Ireland and other places. And who invented them, we don't know. You know, there's a lot of lost history, and there's a lot of arguments about it. And, Irish believe they came from Ireland, and I believe the Scots believe they came from Scotland, and there's that sort of thing. They're just very ancient, old instruments, and all we know for the most part is the development of them. And some of them we do know, some of the historic harps that are in museums, they know who actually might have made that particular harp, but where that falls into how ancient or how close it was to being the first harp, the first Celtic harp built, I don't know how we know that.
The only harpist I would have known was the woman on Lawrence Welk.
And Harpo Marx.
And Harpo Marx, yeah, and Harpo Marx, yeah.
Everybody thinks Harpo Marx, and by the way, that's a biography you got to read if you pick up. There's a book called Harpo Speaks, and it's the funniest darn thing.
And he really played the harp, right?
He really did.
Okay.
He played that, and he actually was self-taught. He was self-taught, took lessons later in life, and I think the teacher at first couldn't figure out how he could even get a sound out of the harp by the way he was playing it.
Yeah.
So yeah, he was self-taught, and it's a fascinating biography to read that. I mean, I think he popularized the harp in a way that like Liberace did with piano.
Yeah.
A lot of people think, oh, that's a lot of show, but what Liberace did was he brought classical music to people who weren't exposed to classical music. Yep. And made it fun.
Made it fun, yeah.
And I think that's the same thing that Harpo Marx did with the harp. Mm-hmm. And so, however whether good or bad or whatever you want to call his actual playing, and I think for self-taught was fabulous. Mm-hmm. So he was very famous, and we do have famous, famous harpists. I mean, you think about Derek Bell, who passed away recently with the Chieftains. Yeah. Very famous. So, and I don't know that he actually did have some solo albums out. So he made a name for himself that way too, and he was in the Dublin Orchestra, I believe, before he was with the Chieftains. So Alan Stivell is, fabulous. I think that he was really he's the person who really astounded me on the harp very early on. he took the harp. He's one of the first people to take the harp from Europe and come out to the United States and perform around on the Celtic harp. And the man could barely speak English. He was from Brittany and spoke only French, and it was very broken English and couldn't understand what he was saying. And I think I was only about a year into playing the harp, and he came out to where I was living. This was in Santa Monica, and performed there. And I got I got a ticket, and I was like, "Oh, this is great!" And it was general seating, so I got there early, and I was first in line, and sat like second row in the center, and I couldn't figure out what he was doing on the harp. It was like this man is creating magic.
Oh, really?
It was so phenomenal, and to this day, he is so cutting edge. His music, it's world music, but he's not afraid to take a Celtic tune and fuse it with African drums and play the Celtic harp and maybe do the Andreas Vollenweider thing with the electronics. And watching him was like, oh my God, this instrument is magical.
My young love said to me, my mother won't mind, and father won't slight you for your lack of kind. Then she went away from me with her goods and her gear, and that was the last that I saw of my dear. I dreamt it last night, my dear love came in, so softly she came that her feet made no din. Then she laid her hand on me, and this she did say, it will not be long, love, till our wedding day. It will not be long, love, till our wedding day. Yeah, beautiful. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you. Look at you and your little harp too.
Oh, it's so good I got it on tape.
Okay.